And now I get to have my say. This month's topic, technology debt. Technology debt is a phrase more and more people are using these days, and it's one of the few rare buzzwords that I think does a wonderful job of immediately and viscerally describing a real problem that we all deal with. It goes something like this. You implement some solution that you know is not perfect. This is the principal on your debt, basically the same as the principal on your house mortgage. Because the solution isn't perfect, you often have additional workarounds that have to be in place. Other people start taking dependencies on your imperfect solution and its workarounds. Users get adapted to dealing with that imperfect solution and develop their own workaround processes. All of this is interest on your debt, just like the interest on your house. The difference is most of us actually make payments on our homes, gradually reducing the interest and principal over time. That's not what we usually do with technology debt. But the day will come when you're ready to move on from that imperfect solution. But to do so, you will have to pay off all that debt, often all at once or at least over a very short period of time. And just like with a big balloon payment on your mortgage, paying off all that interest and principal all at once is going to be expensive and painful. But you'll have to unwind the dependencies, the broken processes, and everything else if you're eventually going to move on. And you will have to move on because that interest is just going to continue to accumulate. And that's the problem with implementing something that you know is going to be janky in the first place. You have to understand the debt you're going to accumulate and understanding that replacing that system with something better will always be more expensive than just implementing the right thing in the first place. But I'm not saying that you have to somehow strive to never have technology debt. Debt is a useful tool. Without debt, very few of us could ever own a house, right? You just have to make upfront decisions. For example, when you shop around for that house mortgage, you look for the best interest rate, right? Same thing with technology debt. You want to reduce that interest by discouraging or preventing people from taking dependencies, trying to mitigate user impacts so they don't develop workaround processes, stuff like that. But you have to carefully manage these things. My problem with companies today is they tend to pick up this attitude of, well, this was the best we could do. And that's horrible. It's like saying, well, 20% interest was the best I could do on my mortgage. You'd have never taken that mortgage because you had two digits, 2 and 0, right there telling you it was a bad idea. Technology debt just doesn't come with a simple upfront number. So people tend to act like there's no interest at all, but there is. And so long as you understand three things, then debt can be a good tool when used responsibly. First, understand that technology debt has a cost. That cost is not fixed and in fact can vary over time. There's no way to estimate it, but it's there. And second, you can definitely control costs by understanding that you are in a technology debt situation. You can work to prevent dependencies and workarounds that add interest to your debt. Finally, try to have a plan from the get-go to eliminate that debt. Let's look at a quick, simple example. Let's say your company needs a website. You ideally want one with lots of bells and whistles, written in a modern framework, stuff like that. But you're not currently skilled up enough to do that. So you decide to just let your team crank out a simpler website in a different language. You know the language it's being written in isn't going to scale like you will eventually need. You've made the decision to take on technology debt. What that debt might buy you is time to skill up on what you really want to do. So you have to intelligently identify that time as the purpose of the debt and start working on that skill up. Otherwise, the debt was pointless. Next, you manage that debt. Marketing wants an API built, for example, so they can extract information from the website for lead generation. You stall and hold off as much as possible because that API is going to be additional work that will be throwaway. And with it in place, resistance to moving to the eventual better solution will be higher. So you fight taking on that additional interest. And if you do have to take it on, you try to do so by writing an abstract layer that could potentially work, at least partially, with the future solution. Look, technology debt only sucks when you treat it like a high interest rate credit card and when you only make the minimum monthly payments. Used intelligently, And with full awareness of what you're doing and that it'll cost you something, technology debt is a useful tool. Just make sure you're treating it with respect. Of course, that's just my perspective. I hope you'll share yours, and here's where you can reach us on Twitter. Thanks very much for joining us, and I'll see you next month with another episode of IT Ops News and Talk. For Pluralsight, I'm Don Jones.